Today's live stream is on the NavCoin Community Fund, which we're hoping to release pretty soon, hopefully next week, depending on how all the testing goes. And we just want to talk through how that really works, so everyone's aware of the mechanic and how to get involved. So we're going to start by talking about how coins are added to the fund, right? How does that work? So effectively, when the community, we've already had the accumulation of the community fund going for a couple of months now, and there's about 75,000 NavCoin in the community fund. And the way that they're generated is that every block, 0.25 NAV are generated by the person who mines the block. And that's now part of the consensus rules. They have to generate that amount. And those funds aren't sent anywhere. They don't go to us. We don't have like an address that sits there and collects these coins. The way that it works is that these coins are actually burnt when they're created. So what I mean by burning coins. Usually when you send coins to someone, they have basically a conditional, a set of conditions attached to them, which means that, they have a set of conditions attached to them, which is how the person you're sending them to is able to then spend them. So we talked about this in some of our previous live streams, a bit about how transactions work, but effectively, if A sends to B, attached to this transaction is the conditions that for B to then send to someone else, they need to prove that they own those coins by signing the transaction with the private key that owns it, and that they can't send more, the amount has to equal or be less than the amount that was input, and all these types of things. So that's a normal transaction. With the ones that are generated for the community fund, effectively this condition is always going to equal false. So there's no way of getting the community fund coins by providing any type of signature. So when these coins are created, they're attached with a condition that says these can never be spent. And the way that this works is that claimed coins are regenerated, or are generated actually. So when someone has a successful proposal and they're claiming their coins, new coins are actually minted, right? So you could imagine as well, the way that a transaction works, a regular transaction, it has to have inputs and then outputs. So if my community proposal was even just for 1,000 NAV, let's say, and we didn't use this method where we're destroying them and then regenerating them, the input to that transaction would have like 4,000 inputs, right? Quarter of a NAV is means that 1,000 NAV claimed would be 4,000 inputs, which would pretty much fill up an entire block just in the one transaction. So that's obviously not how we want to do it, because then all of these transactions would be really large. So what we do instead is we do this method where we burn 0.25 per block, and then when a payment request is made and accepted, then someone who mines the block after that payment request is valid will generate these coins and issue them to the person. So they just end up as a new coin-based transaction. One of the points of difference between our community fund and some of the others that have been implemented in the past is, well, firstly, the way that we're burning these coins to the blockchain means that we don't control any of it, which is really awesome. And secondly, we've got this two-step process, right, where we create a proposal, and then that's not the end of the story, because we're seeing a lot of community funds have been taken advantage of by people who have effectively scammed coins out of them. So we've created this two-step process where you then have to make a payment request. So to make a payment request, you specify the hash and the amount and ID, and that's mainly for your own reference. Yeah. So the way that the payment requests work is that you can do as many or few as you like, basically, but they always have to add up to less than what you asked for. So if it's a small proposal, like I just want to, run a campaign on Google Ads or something like this, and it's really kind of quick to implement, I could request the nav, and then once it's accepted, I deploy the campaign, and then I prove to the network that I did deploy the campaign, and then I would just claim for the whole amount at that point, basically, right? Because the job's done, it was a simple thing, and it's kind of ready to go. For bigger or more complicated proposals, you might actually want to break that into parts. So there can be multiple payment requests made against one proposal. If I was doing something big, like maybe building a website, what I might do is, if it was going to cost, I don't know, 20,000 NavCoin to build this amazing new web portal for Nav or whatever it is, I might ask for even potentially some immediately to get the project going. And then I could come back with, wireframe designs and a sitemap and be like, here's step 1, can I have some more? And sort of unlock it on a milestone basis. As you get the designs, you do that, and then you show some MVP pages and whatever, and then eventually the whole thing launches. You make your final payment request because your job's done. So as I said, we've got proposals and payment requests. They both work on a 1-week period, and the we've got both have a minimum quorum of 50%. And 70% yes, 70% no. And proposals have 4 cycles to get out of one of these states, to either be accepted or rejected, and payment requests have 6. So the idea there is that you've got a little bit more of a chance to get your payments out. It's slightly easier to get your payments out than it is to get a proposal in, just to give people time to get paid, because of course we do want people to actually get paid for their work. So the voting stuff's all the same. From what I read in the latest version of the code, and yeah, we've got a 6-week cycle. So that's pretty much it to do with the payment requests in terms of the voting. You start off, when you first submit a proposal, they will go into this pending state. If they fail the vote, they'll go to rejected. If they don't vote either yes or no after the 4 full-week cycle, they will move to expired. And the only both of these states, rejected and expired, that's just the end of the proposal. Can't move anywhere from there. If a proposal is accepted, it can end up in this pending fund state. So if we have a proposal that is requesting more funds than are available at that point in time, it'll move into this pending fund state. And then when the correct amount of funds are available, it will move into accepted. So that does mean that you can create proposals for more NAV than are actually in the community fund, but they'll only ever become accepted once those funds are available. So that's the states of a proposal. Payment states are pretty much the same. They're just, there's a couple less. So with payment states, we pretty much just have accepted, rejected, and expired. Once your proposal is accepted, it has to have the right amount of funds. So they kind of get escrowed away for you. So you know that once it's moved to the accepted state, there's no pending fund state over here because those are already waiting for your proposal ready to go, basically. Assume that each one of these are 1 week, these 1 week cycles. So we got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We'll go one more just for the hell of it, 10. Right? So we got a timeline of cycles. If I submit my proposal here, and that's where it comes into the blockchain, halfway through cycle 0, voting will actually commence here. So that's the start of the voting. And this counts as your first full cycle, right? We'll use a different color. So voting starts from here. And you have up to here for it to be accepted, right? That's the maximum that you can have. Once you enter this first one, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cycles. And at this point, if you haven't reached a quorum and it hasn't got a yes vote or a no vote, then it will be expired. So let's assume that you submit your proposal, people start voting for it, you get accepted on this, you get 40% on this one. God, that pen's not good. I'm not going to use that one. You only get a 40% yes vote on this one, and then you get more people know about your proposal, and so you get a 75% vote on this next cycle. That means that voting will end at the end of this. So even though you got 75%, so you would have technically got 70% like slightly before the voting period ends. Voting ends at the end of the cycle. So we wait for the end of the cycle to complete. And then this is when your proposal starts. So let's say I submitted my proposal and I said that I only needed 2 weeks, right, to do my proposal. And it's for 1,000 NAV, 100 NAV, 1,000 NAV, right? So that 2 weeks that I specified, it starts from where the voting was successful. So this is effectively the start date of my proposal as well. Actually, I'll use the other one. So that voting ends, and because it was successful, that is the proposal start relative to the deadline which I set myself. So you don't set a deadline as a date. You say, I need this amount of time. So my 2 weeks starts then, which is actually pretty short. But that's okay. Some of these things can be quite fast. So this is basically my proposal period here, right? That I'm actually doing the work. Now, that does mean that you have to submit your payment request before the end of your proposal deadline, basically, right? So I might do the work in the first week, and then during the second week, I submit my payment request. Right? And then it doesn't matter that my project's now, the project deadline has now been. We're trying to make a self-governed community. I think it's a really, really powerful idea that, a system like this, in traditional, like let's say governance, like literally governments, there's kind of this barrier to even being able to suggest a change, right? You already have to be in a position of privilege and power to even just suggest an improvement to the system. You have to be a politician, basically. It's really hard for me, just as one guy, to give an idea to the government and for it actually to be taken seriously, right? It's pretty much impossible. So systems like this are really powerful because everyone has the equal chance of making a change into this system, right? So no matter who you are, I can submit a proposal as one of the co-founders of NavCoin, or someone who decides to stay completely anonymous, has never interacted with our community before. They can submit the proposal too, and both of them have equal weight, right? There's no way for us to block proposals and stuff like that, and they're going to be based on their merits. And if my one's not very good and the anonymous person's one's better, then that will get accepted, and then that will become part of the NavCoin ecosystem, and it'll improve the system. So I think that that's such a powerful statement, right? We're moving from this system where there's this barrier to even be able to ask for change, to a system where everyone can egalitarianly and equally suggest changes to the network, and it's the people who are actively participating in the network who get to decide whether that becomes part of the new system.